Hey everybody, look at us go. We are kicking butt today with an amazing, amazing day of webinars, and we are very privileged and lucky to have this human being speak to us on stage in May, but also right now on our webinar. Please everybody, this is Laura Elkaslassy.
Elkaslassy, it's okay. Just call me Laura E. That's what a lot of people do. It's all good.
Gosh, because I was stressing last night about how to pronounce that name, even though I do know you quite well. So those who don't know, Laura is not a doctor. She's not a chiropractor, but she does know a bucket list. She's almost like a doctor of business. There you go. She's an absolute rock star. She knows a lot of things to help a lot of us chiropractors for our futures. So tell us a bit about you and where you come from, Laura E.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. And yes, I'm going to totally take that title of Doctor of Business. Let's do that. So I have been in the business and finance industry for a number of years, more than 10 years. I don't like to say the real amount of years because then people think I'm really old.
No, I wouldn't.
So we won't do that. Yeah. And I run multiple businesses myself. And the biggest thing that I have learnt over the years, not only for myself, but through clients and working with numerous people around Australia and the world, is that we get into business for a reason. And then we find ourselves a lot of the time just working really hard and burning ourselves out and not making the money that we think we're going to make, and having to change that. And so I love spending my time doing that, talking about that, fixing, the businesses and money, because that's effectively the lifeblood of business, so that you can tap back into your true purpose and back into why you're doing business. And so, hit me with it,
Sam. As you can tell, that we got her here for a reason. Laura is a wealth of knowledge. Those that don't know, she's heavily involved with a book called The Profit First. So she's basically the Australasian leader of that movement. And I'm sure we'll spend some more time discussing Profit First. But I first learned about this from a lot of my American counterparts that were telling me, you have to read this book. It has changed my life. It's given me, certainty in my future. It's not just allowed me to be a great chiropractor, but to kind of be excited by what my kids are going to do in years and years to come. So we'll discuss that in a minute. But also she really oozes that whole principle of vitalism and philosophy. And I'm sure she'll mention that in a minute about how the way that you don't need to have this number crunching left brain only kind of accountant in your world, but to be able to understand there's an energetic component to money, and an adjustment has an energetic component to it through vitalism and your innate potential. Having those two have a cohesion can really allow you to be set up for life and a life you deserve. So maybe on the Profit First, I know that you run some seriously big businesses. You speak to accountants and in the world of business, and you kind of are on the stage a lot in that industry. So in regards to Profit First, can you maybe just summarize what that is in a nutshell for a second?
Yeah, sure. So Profit First, it's a cash flow methodology, and it's a book written by Mike Michalowicz. But what we've done is we've taken it a step further, and we have, headquarters around the world where we are implementing it as a financial literacy. And what it is it's not another accounting jargon thing you need to learn or another report that you need to look at or understand. It is actually leveraging our mindset, leveraging our human behavior, and instead of changing the habits that we have, using them. And the idea being that we make decisions from our bank account a lot of the time, whether there is $10,000 in there and we say, yes, we've got money to do this, this and this, or we've got no money in there and we hustle to then bring the money in, we make decisions, and that is a fact. And so the idea being that if you leverage that and make decisions from one bank account, why not have multiple, but give them the purpose and know exactly what's happening at any one time.
Wow, I love that. I love the idea of the fact that rather than changing your habits, you just use your habits. That's a gold line. I love that. And so, and then with that idea, so is it, I'm guessing, like a cash flow modality you mentioned to allow businesses to then plan for the future?
Absolutely. So and I'm going to say this, which upsets accountants in the finance industry, but usually in business, what we're looking at is what has happened, whereas Profit First draws a line and says, well, that's happened. What are we doing going forward? So tapping into that why, tapping into the goals, the dreams, the purpose for why you're doing the things that you're doing, but also ensuring that the time and energy that you're investing in what you're doing is getting that return and you know what's happening without the stress, with as much money as possible, and actually with cash profit in the bank.
Love that. And just so I want you guys to know the credibility here we're talking about, when I mentioned that we have Laura coming to our stage here, yes, we've got some big names like the Brad Glowackies and we've got the Guy Reekmans and we've got the big names that are coming. When they heard about like having someone that's directly linked to Profit First and how big it is in the financial world in America, like it seriously is got some big pull over there. We haven't really got the big exposure to it here in Australia yet. But Laura, we managed to find her and asked her if she'd get involved, and she's pretty excited about bringing this to our small little seminar, being the biggest seminar in the Southern Hemisphere for chiropractic in its full entirety. But we are pretty excited about to have this information for the first time being given to you guys. And also, maybe from that, can you maybe, with your expertise, then tell us, you are involved with small business and medium and large businesses. Yes, you have got a methodology around how to prepare for the future, but what do you see are some of the biggest, I suppose, problem areas? If you had to give us 3 or 5 big things that you see that small businesses, whether they are in the health industry or other industries, that you know that they need to be fixed to kind of help them leverage themselves in the future.
Yeah, so the biggest problem from a practical perspective that I see is that people don't know what's coming up. And so therefore, when compliance stuff comes into place like tax or GST, and normally when you're successful, there's big bills that come in well after the fact, the money's gone to something else. And so that stress that comes in going, oh, I need to make more sales to pay this thing. And then the money comes in to pay that. And then you've got another bill 2 months later or a year later or whatever it is. And that cycle of always trying to catch your tail and working harder and losing that connection to purpose. And so that's one of the biggest problems that I see. The other problem that I see is that we don't work smarter. And what I mean by that is we are taught to, I'm going to go to an accounting principle, but don't fall asleep just yet. Just stick with me for a little bit. An accounting principle be... That's it. That sales minus expenses equals profit, which is really saying from a mindset and an energetic perspective that whatever money you come in, you're going to spend, and then hopefully there's something left over as an afterthought. Yep. Whereas with, working smarter, it's like, hold on, what if the money that comes in, the sales, I take the profit first, literally put cash aside, then whatever I have left over is what I have to run my business, to pay staff, to do all of the things that I need to do. That's working smarter because you're then thinking outside of the box. And I'd like to liken it to toothpaste for a second. And I know you're like, hold on, we've gone from accounting principles and now we're with toothpaste. But it really comes back to Parkinson's law, which is, Sam, when you've bought a new toothpaste, and you're putting it on your toothbrush, do you use a small amount or a big amount?
Definitely a big amount, always.
And when it's at the very end, what are you doing?
You're just dabbing it on there. You're just trying to put a little point on the end. That's a good analogy.
And that's it. But how long does it last for?
What, the toothpaste or?
Yeah, when you're at the end.
Yeah.
It lasts
way longer. Yeah, definitely. And you almost...
Yeah, it's Parkinson's law.
That is a freaking good analogy. Us chiros love our analogies, but that just wiped the floor with me. I don't get gobsmacked very often, but well done. Amazing.
You're welcome. No, but the point being that when we have a surplus of something, or if all of our money is in one account, then we're likely to just go, yep, big sweeping, spend the money on this thing. Whereas if you've got a small amount left, or whatever you've portioned left after you've taken your profit, it's interesting what you can achieve with smaller amounts of money or smaller things, just like the toothpaste. And so working smarter rather than harder is my biggest thing there as well.
And it's not even a cliche, because that's often you hear that work smarter, not harder, smarter, not harder. You hear that all the time. But yeah, I love the fact there's actually some methodology and some tangible ideas behind that. All right, so you've got 2 big things here saying that, the big problem is a lot of us small business operators will chase our tails and literally just wait for that next bill, next bill, next bill, next bill. Second one is that obviously we've got to learn how we don't really work that smart, because we spend all our money and basically once again get stuck in the cash flow challenge. Any other things that you see that in your industry small businesses need to not be aware of, but they are factors in small business that are causing damage or challenge?
Yeah, one of the other things that is actually something that I personally experienced as well is that we don't pay ourselves the wage that we would pay someone else's owners of the business as well. It's like, oh, well, once I get to this point, I'll pay myself that. Or once my business achieves this, then I'm going to be able to pay myself, a bit more. And we really put our own personal goals and dreams, and also our family on the side a lot of the time, when it is possible to do that at the same time as grow your business.
That is so true. It's even like, I'm just going to do a parallel from that. When I was speaking to my broker recently about loans and that kind of stuff, he pretty much said to me, okay, cool, so you must be the director of your company. So I'm guessing, your wife might be, she has PAYG stuff, but you wouldn't. And I said, no, I've got my own PAYG statements. And the guy's like, but aren't you a director of a company? I said, yeah. And he was blown away by the fact that, yes, I do actually pay myself a wage, and I do get paid myself a super, and yes, I have profits at the end of my company, but still, like, even a broker who deals with people all day, every day, had no idea of actually assuming that every director of a small business literally never has a paycheck. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, wow, okay. So then from that, so is there any other things that, I'm sure there's many, but is there any other problems that spring to mind for you that you are problem solving and fixing with in most of your day-to-day activities with your small businesses? Is there other things you can think of that a lot of us chiros could relate to in regards to problems in cash flow?
Definitely, and I think that it really comes down to our own self-worth and also our value.
Wow.
We know we give our clients a lot of value, and it's in every industry. And again, I've been in the same position before where it's like, oh, well, I want to help as many people, so I'm not going to charge as much or whatever, but it cripples you and sends you backwards. And so I spend a lot of my time in the pricing area of business, but pricing to be able to give back, to have scholarships, to give the free things, to, really look after your team and that sort of stuff. You have to have the right pricing in place so that, you can do that. And a lot of the time it is that grappling with, well, profit is greedy, where it's not, and really breaking that down and looking at, well, money and profit really is just a neutral resource. And the charge that we give to it is our own experience, our own mindset, and our own sort of challenges.
Wow.
And so I spend heaps of time there.
Oh, but that didn't smack you in the face like a wet fish, then I'm telling you what, we've got some fun coming your way, because that was huge. There's like that bullshit statement, which is part of my French, but holy shit, that does my head in when, the root of all evil, the money is the root of all evil. But it's not. It's it's the love of money and the greed of money that's the root of all evil. So a lot of the time people are literally crippled by money and their decision making. And so I love the fact that it's your own connection or emotion to money that can really jeopardize your future as a business operator. So
absolutely.
Hey, you're pretty good at this stuff. It's good.
Thanks, Sam.
So then tell me that, obviously, with the mentality of profit first, yes, you've got some some pretty big wisdom points there, which is things in practice that us chiropractors could, I suppose, keep an eye out for of our problems. In regards to solutions for those problems, can you maybe give me some ideas of what might be some solutions to fix those problems, or even just some pearls that you've got that you might better partake on us now before we get to the stage in May?
Yeah, of course. I think the biggest thing is really knowing where your money's flowing, and Profit First, the methodology. And I'm not going to go into all of the ins and outs and the how-tos and that sort of thing, because it would take a lot longer than what we have. But to be able to give a really good idea as to what I'm talking about is, a lot of the time we don't know what cash is coming in and what cash is going out. And so looking at how much revenue comes in and then where you're allocating it into 5 simple areas and giving it a percentage helps enormously. And those 5 areas being your income, your profit, your owner's pay, so what you're taking as the owner, your tax obligations, and then your operating expenses. So even just splitting out all of your revenue to these areas and where you spend your money, not only will you immediately see that, you may actually be spending 70% of your revenue on expenses. So therefore, no wonder it feels tough to pay yourself and your obligations and have any profit. And just knowing that percentage without getting stuck in the ick of the dollar figure can make a huge difference.
Wow, and that's kind of, for us chiros out there, I just want you to realize that if you're a professional athlete, you've often got a offensive coach, a defensive coach, you've got a midfield coach, you've got a freaking food coach, you've got all these different coaches. Us as chiros, we often are considered as coaches of, hey, we can adjust your spine, we can teach you about how to get healthy. And what's cool about this is we've all got our little, hey, when it comes to health, it's super simple. The nervous system coordinates this, and we can break down for a healthcare class very easily. What's nice about having a professional like Laura in our mix and coming to our stage is like how easy she just rattled that off. It's just like, there's 5 major areas, and like, have a percentage in place to pay yourself forward and to make sure you have like I know it seems super simple, but it must be like absolute gold mine for a lot of those clients, a lot of your clients out there that finally hear this information and put it into place.
Well, because half of the problem is that we're not taught financial literacy, or what we're taught is so complicated that you feel like you need a degree just to understand it, whereas it can be simple. You can have a simple framework in place that's meaningful to you. And just to explain that even further as to what I mean by that is that, I said 5 areas, but if we look just at the operating expenses, you could break that down to be even more meaningful, to be wages, to be investment back in the business, to be whatever it is that you're doing, and the percentage of that total amount you have. But it's going to be different for every business, but it's yours. It makes sense to you.
And I thought, I'm reading between the lines here. I'm assuming what you meant by investing back in your business, that would mean like for the average chiro to be paying for them to come to the IN8 Summit to learn these skills. Yep. Right.
That's right.
Nice. I like the little...
Have an account for it.
There you go. I like that little lead in there. Thank you for that. I might have stretched your... paraphrase.
You're right, though.
Good. All right, so then that's absolutely brilliant. I love that information. And so maybe the next step I'd love to ask you about then is in regards to the profit first modality. Can you give us some examples of maybe even some testimonials or some other people that you can think of that might have been using this, that might have been stuck, that have changed? Because some chiros, let's face it, apathy gets in the way of us getting healthy for most, and we can kind of get frustrated with apathy for our clients as chiropractors. But I'd also like to say a lot of chiros, we should be kicking ass. We should have scholarships. We should have the ACC, which is a university here full of donations. And us chiros, we can earn some good cash flow, but we're not all thriving with cash. Okay, we might drive a Mercedes, but pretty much they're paid for by the banks. So if we could find a way to have us a lot more successful as an industry, I think humanity would be a lot healthier. So can you give us some examples of what is possible if we do start using this literacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually work with a number of allied health professionals as well. So I do know what kind of happens in the background in terms of where cash goes and that sort of thing. And so one of my examples being that one of these allied health workers had no idea what was happening, had a huge debt to the ATO, was leveraged in terms of needing more loans to grow bigger, was reinvesting back into the business. And when I say reinvesting back into the business, was putting as much money in as they were taking out, thinking that it would get them to their growth goals. And through implementing Profit First, not only did they realize, one, where their money was going and that their real revenue, and what I mean by real revenue is the money that comes in less any GST, less any materials or that sort of stuff that you need to pay for, what's left over is what you have to run the business. They didn't realize that $1 million business that they were running, they actually only had $300,000 a year to run everything else and pay everyone. And just that alone made them go, oh, wow, I now need to change these 2 things. Sure. Do you know what I mean? And through implementing it, they were able to make changes where they had no more ATO debts, and their ATO debt, and when I say ATO debt, was income tax, because they were profitable on paper, but they weren't profitable in cash. It was around $80,000 that they owed the ATO that they then paid off in 6 months through implementing Profit First. They also rejigged how they offered their services and how it was priced, so that they'll manage to increase their income by 40% without changing anything apart from how they offered things.
Wow.
And they realized that how their staff were working, it wasn't actually efficient, so they could do more with their staff and therefore bring in more revenue as well.
So if I could really say, who here would like to do nothing different in regards to operations but have an increase in profit by 40%, I'd imagine that would be a pretty nice little change in your business structure for sure. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so then in regards to some of the other things you could say, so right now you said to kind of make changes as a small business is one thing, to kind of give you some more greater profits. Can you think of any other things that you think would be a huge gold mine of change for our attendees to come to and hear this information and to actually start putting into place to make a change for 2023, having this year been a bigger and better year financially for them. Is there any kind of pearls you got for us?
The biggest thing I'd say is that the money isn't the thing that you need to concentrate on. It's concentrating on your why. It's really tapping into who you are, what you're trying to do, what change you're trying to have in the world, and then shaping your business around that. Because with the Profit First framework, it's flexible enough to rejig it to your goals. You don't have to fit in that box. So it's really the first step, tapping into yourself. You know best. You really do.
So what would you be tapping into then? Like your innate?
That's right. Or, your intuitive intelligence, universal law, all of those things. It all is, we are one. It is all the same.
You know what, Laura, I'm just so excited. Have you ever been adjusted before? We better find you a rockin' chiropractor.
I already have one, thanks, Sam. Do you know who it is?
Who is that?
Yes, it's you.
Oh, wow. And that must be why you get this innate principle. It just totally makes sense now.
Absolutely.
Sorry to be so cheeky, but on that note, like the reason why I'm quite excited is that I'm going to say it again. When I did mention that, when Laura first came in to our practice, I was saying to her, the philosophy, the chiropractic, and she was saying, there's a lot of these things that's just like this connection between what we teach and what you guys have here. And I kind of get this message from a business point of view. I kind of thought, okay, didn't think much more about it. And then I knew that you were kind of in the accounting world. And I used to have a lot of jokes around with accountants. I used to always pay her out about, hey, your industry, it's a real big plus for humanity. And there's no substitute for your world of thinking. And like, I would have a fair bit of fun. Like you must just really multiply your understanding of knowledge. So I had a lot of fun with Laura. And it wasn't until I said, have you ever heard of this book? And no joke, this is literally what happened in our practice. I'm reading this book and it's called Profit First. Have you ever heard about it? And she thought I was taking the piss out of her. And it wasn't until I found out that she pretty much is the King Poobah here, or Queen Poobah in Australia, of this stuff. That's kind of where I was kind of, the universe had my back saying, Sam, you run a seminar, the chiros need to hear this information. It's been gold for me in my industry and for me and Gabby in our future, which is why I feel like it's the perfect serendipitous moment to be able to have Laura to be able to come to our Chiro's only business-focused seminar in May. So, Laura, thank you so much for saying yes, for getting involved with our seminars, and for saying that, yep, I can be there and I can support the small business of Australia and also the chiro industry. So is there any more pearls there you can kind of, I suppose, partake on? Are there any last words that you want to say to the group that either might, if they never hear you again, or if they do come to the seminar, or if they hear this webinar in the future, that you can leave a lasting impression in their thoughts?
Well, firstly, I'm super excited to be in your sphere with other chiropractors. It sounds like an amazing group of people. And I'd love to be able to leave this last sort of thought with you all, and that is, as you are the support team to so many people, you also need your own support team, and that is your financial support team, it is your health support team, it is your, love support team, whatever it is. Ensure that whatever support team is missing, that you find that, because it's going to make all the difference.
Love that. And you are right. Like, we have got a freaking amazing tribe. Like the IN8 Summit, the people there, like, when you get on stage, I think I was mentioning to you, we're always the first one on the dance floor. We're always the first ones to be partying and rocking out with I know that that's going to be your people. And you are also our people. You're kind of one of our clientele, and you get the principles of vitalism and chiropractic and the value of the adjustment. And so I know you're going to have fun, and I definitely can double click on that and say that a support team around you is huge. The IN8 Summit is there for you to grow into the size of your business and the cash flow of your business that you want. But most importantly, do it for your kids. Like, if you start putting money aside and you understand what is a profit first, what it looks like. If you want to freaking be driving your Geminis and going to Queensland for your future, that's great. If you want to be maybe going to Europe and driving a bigger and better car and having, whatever, then either one is the same, is a goal for you. But just make sure that you know what your goals are or your purpose is, and actually have someone around you like Laura and this information to help you achieve those goals. So I can't wait to hear you on stage. I know you've got plenty more pearls up your sleeve. And thank you so very much for saying yes for this webinar, and also for saying yes to speaking in the May event. Guys, get your tickets. You can see here we're getting really close now. We've got 2 months to go. There's a few more spots available, but this year we'll definitely sell out. And I'm predicting we're going to sell out for about a month prior to the event. So Just act now, put aside the empathetic thoughts, and just get your tickets because you will not be disappointed. Laura, love you. I'll see you in the practice soon, and I'll
Can't
see you
wait.
on stage as well in May. You're incredible.
Amazing. Thank you.
Beautiful.